Welcome to the Burns Industry Insights event. I'm Ravi Singh, Director of Operations for Burns Engineering for the Western region. Based here in Los Angeles, California, our Burns team supports multiple clients designing and delivering innovative projects. Today, we're going to be focusing our Industry Insights event on the aviation industry. Specifically speaking, about the future of the aviation industry, what our airports of tomorrow are going to look like, and how do we get there? Thanks for joining us. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Burns Engineering is a professional service firm. We provide design and construction management services to large clients that do major infrastructure projects. Burns focuses on specialized engineering services in niche areas. To do that, we need to be innovative and look at technology that is evolving and changing. And one of the areas is sustainability and energy-related conservation. So that is part of what we offer to our clients.
I think really looking at the national presence of Burns and the national portfolio of projects that have really been focused on accelerating our services around key innovations that are really going to help the communities, help cities that are trying to look 5 to 10 to 15 years down the road and make a bigger impact, not just for the near term, but for the long term, and a very inclusive impact. And the LA region, the West Coast, is leading a lot of the initiatives that really align well with what Burns has been doing for quite some time. Burns serves clients in the aviation industry, but also in advanced power and energy, healthcare, higher education, industrial, and railroad and transit markets.
Part of what we offer as an engineering firm is technology in the area of transportation and the customer experience. Burns really stays on top of new technology through its people. We have subject matter experts that attend conferences, that write papers, that are on the leading edge of implementing this technology with customers. They collaborate well together and with other companies and with suppliers of the technology to bring together and integrate and implement technology. Because there's a lot of technology out there, but it's the ability to integrate and make it all work together is where our people really add a lot of value to these systems.
We're so focused on resiliency, focused on our clients being resilient, being able to survive or make it through tough challenges, but that also extends out to the community. We want to show that we're in it for the longer haul. So our solutions show that as well. We're working alongside with them, we're part of the community, we're impacted just as much as they are.
We're very driven and results-oriented. It's in an environment where people collaborate and want to work together and help each other. So that makes for a great company. But it starts with our people, and that's what keeps me coming to work every day. It's just the great talent that we have at Burns.
Hi, my name is Brian Phillips. I am the Vice President of Aviation for Burns Engineering. We provide specialized engineering to airports. That's kind of in a nutshell. And there are 4 categories of services. We have a facility engineering team, so that's any mechanical, electrical engineering, plumbing, structural engineering for any type of facility at an airport, any type of building. We have an airfield team that any type of electrical communication engineering required on the airfield, taxiways, runways, that team handles that. We have a technology team, so that team handles communication systems, security, any type of wireless system, all the low voltage systems at airports. And then the final category of services is our energy and resiliency team. So they do energy master planning, microgrid technology, and energy efficiency projects. A lot of our team are active in the development of some of the standards and research about different technologies and where things are headed and where the trends are headed. So we're kind of ahead of the curve so we can assist airports in making the right decision for their facility.
I think people don't realize it, that the aviation industry, in particular airports, is just packed full of technology, and they don't understand, I guess, the level of technology it takes to just have a facility that complex. They don't see the baggage handling systems. They don't see the checkpoint wait times or the security devices that you're walking through. They may see it, but they don't understand what goes into it, right? So we have to design up to 50 different disparate systems across the airport. Not only do we do technology from the standpoint of getting in the weeds and bandwidth requirements and making sure all the systems work, but we have to have a bigger picture. So when we look at passenger experience, we look at the larger picture where you need to have multimedia elements so that people are comfortable, and even just lighting, mood lighting or whatever it may be through controls, so that when they go through, they're happy and they want to go fly.
What sets Burns apart is, one, our experience. We've worked at over 100 airports. So we can bring that expertise, the lessons learned, the perspective we have from working at those different airports to our clients. We also have a culture of collaboration. This is one of the reasons I love working at Burns, is the collaborative culture. So when we're working with an airport or a team, we're bringing that approach. We're a company that's looking to develop partnerships, long-term relationships. We're not a transactional company, so we'll do what it takes for project success, because that's ultimately what will make us successful in the long run.
Thanks for joining in on that one. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and you're going to see a lot more of these videos and these types of events moving forward. So, and there is the guy I'm so lucky to work with, Kevin Schertz. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the series here.
Hey, Robbie. Yeah, this was definitely new to me, but pretty exciting. It's funny, I'm watching myself and I do not like it. I do not like watching, but still,
yeah. Hey, at least you've got your hair, not the,
right. I mean, it's a good looking group, right? That's not,
I appreciate it.
Just having a little fun, but yeah, I guess the meet is coming up next, right? And I was lucky enough to moderate and host two of leading minds in our aviation industry. And with that, if we can just go right to it, I think we don't need to waste any more time.
Let's take it away, Kev.
Good day and welcome everyone to Burns Industry Insights, the first of what we hope are many panels where we get to invite and interview some industry experts from around the country. This is our first event, as I said, and we're focused on aviation industry, in particular, disruptive technologies and preparing for the future of airports. And with us, I am very lucky to have two national industry experts with us. Welcome, Martha and Todd. Good to have you here. Martha Edge is the Innovation and Experience Director with Charlotte Douglas International Airport. I've been able to work with Martha a little over the years, as we do have on-call contract there with Charlotte, are lucky enough to work together. Martha spent over 20 years in the industry. I don't want to, give your age away, Martha, sorry.
I appreciate that.
And over 12 with Charlotte in particular. And with us also is Todd Van Gerpen, Manager of Innovation and Systems with Seattle Tacoma International Airport. Todd, should I say it's been 40 years in the industry? Is that right?
It has been 42 years in airports.
Amazing. Yep. We're lucky to have both of you on, and welcome. I'm Kevin Schertz. I will be our moderator, and I am our Director of Aviation Technology Services with Burns. So let's get started. We're going to talk about two subjects in particular. Topic one is disruptive technology to enhance the passenger experience. And topic two, how will the aviation industry look in 2035, and how will we prepare now? So not 2035 in particular, we just picked a date, threw it out there, 10, 20 years, whatever it may be. We'll talk about that in a bit. So to start, disruptive technology to enhance the passenger experience. So let me start by just saying, as you know, I've spent 20 years doing this. Disruptive technology can sound like a buzzword, and that can kind of come across as one of these things that people eye roll. But to me, it's a real thing. It's new technology that changes the business or how we run airports, or it's existing technology maybe we use in a different application. So to start, Todd or Martha, I don't know if you want to go first, but how do we embrace disruptive technology while minimizing impact to operations? Todd, would you like to start?
Martha, go ahead.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sorry, I didn't want to just jump in. I think that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting the times we are living in now, because I really feel like this past year and a half and this pandemic in particular have really forced us into this embracing period where, we don't even think about it now as a nation or as a world. We are embracing disruptive technologies without even realizing that we're doing so. I mean, I'm going to use a Southern example here. You go to Waffle House and you scan a QR code on your phone for the menu. That's a disruptive technology. You're not holding on to a menu because heaven forbid we touch something right now, because that's not clean, and we're in a pandemic. Same thing goes for the industry. We are looking at any sort of ways that we can help the operation, where we are having whatever you have in your hand as a customer or an end user or a traveler of the airport, where you're not having to go and touch things. You're basically using whatever you are always carrying, and let's face it, everyone's always carrying their phone. They're looking at their phone. No matter what age group you're in, you're going to have something on your person that's going to be a piece of technology that you're going to be able to use to kind of traverse through the terminal. So it's figuring out a way to use what everyone has to better the operation. And really, I think that we've been fortunate that this pandemic has caused us to do that. If you look back a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when we're looking as an industry at biometrics, and we're looking at using our face as our boarding pass, there was so much resistance to folks using that instead of using a paper boarding pass. But then all of a sudden in comes the pandemic, and everyone says, nope, I don't want to touch anything. Use whatever you need. So, and I'll kick it over to Todd for his perception as well, because I know you're over there in Seattle, and it's probably a very different, more progressive experience, on your side of the world there in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm interested to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about embracing disruptive technology, it lends itself to a trust factor. With whether it be biometrics or virtual queuing, we're doing a couple things in Seattle that are definitely disruptive. We've been installing a biometric system on 30 gates, and we've been dealing with policy, legality, passenger and airline perception. I think in answer to the question, though, the objectives need to be defined early and match the technology to the need. Don't find technology and go look for a problem to use it on. I think that's one of the things that we kind of get caught up in, the shiny balls rolling down the table and go, yeah, that looks really cool, but we have to figure out how we're going to use it. The last couple of things are communicate and educate. You really have to let everybody know what's going on, because that establishes that trust factor once again. It's been very interesting. Our virtual queue project, we'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but how do you tell somebody that once they've been enrolled in the program, they can just go sit down and trust that we're not going to keep your place in line? Standing in a physical queue, everybody gets it. I'm in the right spot, I'm moving forward. A virtual queue, there's really no reference. So I just come back around to just making sure you're using the right technology for the right reasons and communicate and get that trust.
Excellent. So yeah, from what you're both saying, it's really about maximizing the impact to operations. Maybe this question was worded incorrectly, but how to trust the technology and do the proper technology to positively impact the operations. Now you mentioned biometrics. You both did, I think. So question two is, how do you see biometrics being integrated more and more into airports? I know you're both doing it now. I'm doing it in some locations. Todd, do you want to start on this one?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned a moment ago, that Seattle International, SeaTech International is doing 30 gates. We're doing 2 cameras per gate, so we've got 60 cameras deployed. And biometrics, I think, is the wave of the future. There's nothing better than being able to positively identify somebody without contact and from a focal distance of about 5 or 6 feet, because you always have the unintended capture of people behind them and around, but you want to make sure that your subject matter is what you're actually talking about and evaluating. So if you look at the biometric, interjecting biometrics into the customer path, it can start as early as at home, and it can end as, in the airplane seat when you get a cocktail. If your face is once again bounced against the database, and that's all we really need to know, that, yep, that's Kevin, or that's Martha, that's Todd. And with our partnering with Delta Airlines in Seattle, we've had great experience with the one-step boarding process. The traveler doesn't have a passport out. They don't have a boarding pass out. They're not fumbling with any documents. It's all zipped in that special pocket in their briefcase or carry-on. They walk up, they smile at the camera. It bounces off the traveler verification service, goes to the departure control system. They get a green light and they're on the airplane. The agents stand there and just kind of watch. So all in all, that is
Amazing.
biometrics will be integrated into the airport for identity and service offerings very much in the future.
Martha, any insight?
Yeah, and just as Todd said, it's trying to figure out how early you can introduce the biometrics, because there may be a revenue generation component of this. Maybe this is something that you want the customer to be able to pay for their products at the concessions with. Not just on the airline side of the house or on the federal side of the house, because we all know this is something that's coming from the CBP side, and it's only a matter of time before the TSA has this as a requirement as well. But how can we use that to kind of expand upon the business, where as the customer gets used to these federal requirements for biometrics, can we expand that into our revenue generation portfolio as well? Because then they're going to say, oh, now I have to take out my credit card or my Apple Pay, or scan my debit card through the contactless payment. Why can't I just use my face like I use my face everywhere else? For my boarding pass, I also want to use it for my payment. So thinking a little bit more further down the road, as well as, just continuing to look at where we can continue to integrate the biometrics. But it definitely seems to be something that we need to continue to look at, continue to invest in, and then of course continue to be aware of the concerns that could be out there surrounding, how could the privacy potentially be breached? How can we make sure that we have this, portfolio of Martha, Kevin, and Todd to make sure that, no one is trying to pretend to be us, et cetera. But I know that these are all things that are being worked on by other organizations as well. But, that is a concern from our customer, and we do have a very, loud population as well that has concerns about the privacy issues as well. So trying to get ahead of those and just be on top of them.
It's really about timing, isn't it? Part of it is timing and motivation. I mean, it's going to happen, but you need to be motivated. Martha, you touched on it. It's like there's a pandemic and then there's motivation, right, to do something. So how do we get the motivation to occur and maybe go a little faster to make these changes a little quicker?
One thing that biometrics is going to present to us is everybody's going to try to be first to market with a database of images in a gallery. And, the airlines, all due respect, are trying to market their product, and they'll spool up their opt-in programs to get in the United gallery, the American gallery. The CBP has their gallery. And we're already somewhat fragmented. If you have one dominant carrier in your airport and they've got an initiative for biometrics, well, do you put their camera on the door? Then you put your airport camera next to that. Then you put your second airline camera next to that. And we should all hopefully someday be going out of a large, even global database of images for validation of identity, because it's really comes down to making sure that that person is who they say they are, and then everything else falls in line from that, whether it's a purchase, whether it's access to an airplane, or even access to a secure door to your airport into the sterile area.
Excellent.
Common use biometrics.
That's right. Common use is the future. There's no doubt. All right, moving along. Question 3, what opportunities and challenges do you see with autonomous vehicles and their integration into the airport? Now, I was track host, I think, for engineering of AAAE Symposium about 3-4 years ago. And during that symposium, that's when everything turned into autonomous vehicles. And we were going to redesign all the parking garages into, other circumstances, because we're not going to need parking garages anymore. Nobody's going to be driving. There's timing of everything again. But what opportunities, I guess, does the airport industry ourselves have? What do you see with autonomous vehicles integrated into the airport? Martha, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I actually see this more so inside the perimeter fence environment. And I'm thinking on more so on a liability, or from a liability standpoint, because I just keep thinking of these autonomous vehicles, autonomous buses, autonomous, even things that we're using for cleaning, the floor cleaners, et cetera, and our passenger dynamic. And they don't always necessarily understand, what's happening, or that it is an autonomous vehicle, or that they don't need to go near it or get involved in. And, I think that's the mom in me. The mom in me is always concerned about what people don't know, and I look out for them. And I think, who knows better to look out for things within the airfield or the airport environment than the people who work here and who have worked here all their lives. So my focus on any sort of autonomous introduction would want to first go within the perimeter fence. So we're looking at the airfield cleaning from a snow removal standpoint, or from a lawn mowing standpoint, areas where it's very difficult for us to reach because of the flight operation. And we know, our takeoffs and landings and just the flight activity, it's very challenging for us to get in and out of there when we have to get people and vehicles in and out of there just to do work. Even airfield inspections and anything pertaining to, our 139 requirements. So that's kind of where my focus shifts, train them, get everything taken care of on the, interior of the perimeter fence first, and then we can start looking at the exterior. How about you, Todd?
Well, I'm on the same page with you. You started off with liability, and so will I. If something happens, if we have an incident or an accident, who's at fault? Is it the airport? Is it the owner of the vehicle? Is it the software company that established the code for the vehicle? But it is, once again, a disruptive technology, and you were illustrating a trust factor. Can I trust that thing to stay in the lane? Can I trust it to do what we're expecting it to do? And I think in many cases, the Tesla Motor Company has proven that the cars are in some level better than people, but there's always that little glimmer of hope that they still need us around. The autonomous vehicles, if you think outside the sterile area, take it into your parking garage, for example. If you have an autonomous vehicle parking area, you don't need to make room for the doors to open, so you can increase the density in your parking lot. The mirrors fold in, the cars pull in inches away from each other. Now you've just doubled your parking garage size. So there's some definite benefits in that particular arena as well.
Just made a lot of airports happy with that thought.
Cha-ching.
Twice the parking and no construction necessary. Perfect. All right, excellent answers. I completely agree. We're looking at virtual ramp control at Burns, and that'll tie into autonomous vehicles on the air side, and who knows what's to come there. So our last question on this subject before we get to the second one is, which technologies do you see leading us into the future? And that's a broad question, but if you have some favorites maybe that you want to bring up, please do.
Well, I think that the single most leading technology is the handheld device. And I think we're done talking.
Mic drop.
Mic drop is right.
You know, it's everything that happens behind the curtain that I think is where the technology development is happening. But, you know, the saturation of this simple device globally, who would have even imagined it 20 years ago?
Yeah, you're right. It is amazing. It'll be the alphabet companies that sort of do some things that we don't even know they're doing today, probably.
Yeah, I think the aspect of personal digital, you know, making your choices, having the device do what you want it to do, opting in for those things that you like, opting out for those that you don't. That's where it's going in the future. And eventually we go back to biometrics, the device can even stay in your pocket. So we'll see. Martha, what do you think?
So I was thinking on the same line as you, anything that enables the customer to make their own choices. We had a phenomenal example here in Charlotte last night where we had a horrific weather event and we had thousands of customers waiting for their luggage to be delivered. And, you know, our largest carrier here already has a luggage tracking ability on their app. But I kept saying, wouldn't it be nice if the customer could say, I would like my luggage to be delivered to the baggage claim, so then I can just drive to my destination because it's within so many hours, or go ahead and send my luggage on the next flight and deliver it to me when I get there. And, you know, just that personal choice. But my initial answer to this was automation. You know, anything we can do to automate any sort of processes that we already have. And I know that's a very broad, you know, answer, very high level, but that is one of the things that we really work hard on doing. We have so many processes that we're, you know, we'll start asking questions about, well, why do we do it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Well, why don't we automate it? We have the tools, we have the technology. There's so many things that we could be doing now that you know, we can automate, and we simply don't necessarily think about it that way because we've always done it a certain way. So I'll add automation to this.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent answers. I would say maybe one thing for myself would be multimedia elements. Todd, you were saying everybody has the phone. I think there has to be a way to pull people out of their phones. Maybe multimedia is the way. I don't know. But we are seeing it in a lot of places. So topic 2, we're halfway through here. How will the aviation industry look 2035 or so, and what can we do now? So the first kind of question in this arena is, how are you currently utilizing data in your airport operations, and maybe how do you see it in the future being utilized? Martha, you want to go for this one?
Sure. So a lot of the reason that I answered automation on that previous question was because of what we deal with here at Charlotte on the data side of the house. A lot of the data that we are receiving does not necessarily belong to us. We don't own the data, but yet we have to receive it, we have to consume it, we have to scrub it, and then we have to then translate it and make it fit nicely into our dashboard platform so we can then, you know, share it with all the different consumers of the data that we share it with. And it's a lot of work for basically 2 people within our organization here. And any sort of data, anything we can do to, you know, receive the data in just a non-Excel spreadsheet form where someone's not having to rekey the data, you know, is just something that we always strive to do. So we have a phenomenal business intelligence team here that has spent the last couple of years really working hard with our stakeholders and business partners on and figuring out how, you know, how that they automate the data. How can we receive it? Do we use common platforms? You know, there's like Power BI, Tableau. There's several out there that, you know, we all use, and we can try and figure out how our platforms connect and what information we would have access to, et cetera. But we are heavily using the data here in Charlotte that we receive from our stakeholder partners. You know, all of the air carriers, all of our concessionaires, all of our any of our parking products that we have, because we need the data information so all of our managers and business partners can make better decisions on what we're doing in the future. So we really rely heavily on the data itself. This past year and a half has really taught us, as a nation and a world that, data is really important. And our BI group has gotten some, really, they had to step it up this past year, more so than ever. I think everyone realized how important they were because of the pandemic, when we realized we really need to know what the status of the airport is, not necessarily on a monthly basis, but on a daily basis. And they have really been earning their money. So that is how we are currently using it here in Charlotte. How about you, Todd?
I think at CTEC, you can never use it enough. And I think you can switch from gathering the historical data information to your, forward-looking analytics. What's coming in for, we've got a weather alert. We have 3 jetways down. We have resources that are misaligned. All of those things are just phenomenally important. We too have a really great group of business intelligence folks that can do some magical stuff. I just sit and it's like, to me, it's like watching a magic show. You did what with that spreadsheet? But their data is only good as the ability to turn it into something useful, whether it's on a dashboard. And I think, we could probably get better at predictive analytics and trying to stay ahead of events at airports rather than reactive, because airport operations is generally you plan for 6 months and then you wing it the last 5 minutes and you adapt to, what is happening around you. There's a really good example of, the auto leveler in a passenger loading bridge. If you could link that auto leveler to the whole operation and match it with the on chocks and off chocks time period of an airplane, the airplane comes into the gate, it goes on chocks, the timer starts. You can measure the time from when the airplane stopped to when the auto leveler is actuated. Now you can tell if the agent was in the jetway, if the passenger loading bridge is functional, if there's an irregularity going on. And over time, if you measure that from the time period from on chocks to when the auto leveler is on, you can now determine maintenance issues on the electric motors driving the jetway. You may have a jetway that's a outlier, its motors are dying and you didn't know it, and the agent's been frustrated. Or maybe the agent's up in the terminal busy with something else, and now you've got a plane full of people standing in the aisle, nobody opening the door. So it's that minutia that you can drill down into, but look at the simple benefits that come from just knowing on chocks, off chocks, and what the auto leveler is doing.
Wow. I mean, you're talking about this much of it, but that was such an excellent example that you could explode it into every little piece of the airport.
Well, yeah, and you add if the airplane's supposed to leave at 2:00 and that auto leveler is still on at 2:05, well, that means the passenger loading bridge is still up at the airplane. So now you've got another flight coming in for that gate. Now that airplane has to hold. Just that one little thing really makes data important.
So what do you see in 2035, both of you? Do you see this as just, some magical world where the airport moves on its own and HVAC is controlled perfectly and everyone's, I don't know.
I think that to Martha's point about automation, I think data gives you the ability to automate, and you can watch simultaneously a million different things at the same time, and then you can present that information to your humans. And if they need to make a decision, they need to it becomes an actionable item. In 2035, the airport communication centers are probably going to be data hubs because everything is measurable at an airport coming from many perspectives.
Yeah, excellent. I'm loving this session. This is great. All right, so we're heading to question 2 here. What changes do you see ahead? Excuse me, I did click off of that. In terminal design compared to what we know today, and then of course in airfield design, the same things. What do you see in terms of innovation there in design?
I think this is a tough one because we never know. We've been through 9/11, now we're going through this pandemic. Every terminal in every city is designed a little differently as far as, what works best with their airfield, what works best with the space they're given. Some cities have rivers and lakes and oceans, and, they're just adapting to what they have. But I always go back to, what do we think the need is going to be? Do we think it's going to be, a one size fits all model as far as all your security checkpoints are in a certain area and then your concourses are opened up? Or are we designing for different types of aircraft? Are we going to be looking at spacecraft? We're entering that age where it might shift very quickly again. I remember after 9/11, there was talks here, and I was with an airline at the time, so I was not heavily involved in any sort of the discussion surrounding any sort of design, but we were getting the kind of gossipy information, I think, down at my level of we might have to move all the checkpoints to the beginning of each concourse. And one of the wonderful things about Charlotte is, we had any checkpoint you go through, you could access any gate. And that was the great thing about our airport. And we market that heavily. We still do to this day. So we worry about that. But, I think from a design standpoint, both airfield and terminal, it's your equipment. What are we going to be looking at? Are we indeed looking at, aircraft that are going to be a different style? That I mentioned the spacecraft, what will we be looking at? And 2035 is not that far away.
Yeah, you're right. I just heard United Airlines has a purchase order for, what is it, some supersonic aircraft, I believe. So who knows? You're right. And then the spaceports, of course, we've all seen the billionaires flying into space recently. Todd, what do you think? You see your changes coming?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think if we look at the terminal in pre and post security, we're really talking about a place for travelers to divest themselves of their bags. That's really all that's happening in your airport anymore. The folks come in through the front door, their bags are tagged, they put them over there, then they go to security, then they go to their gate. So I think that the air terminal design should be just more of a multi-user, common use, if you will, centralized baggage dropper, several of them throughout your facility. It takes away the ticket counters, and what you see is the classic footprint, and you create open spaces and dwell time. Moving your security out probably in front of that, your space becomes much more valuable. Started thinking about open areas to wait comfortably, no ticket counters in a row. Visual communication is very important, reducing the audio and getting the communication onto those mobile devices that we're so familiar with. Then if you go post security, I spent 20 years with the airlines, and I've got 22 years with an airport. And I think one of the poorest uses of space in an airport is a hold room. If by creating large core hold rooms and having folks comfortably wait where there's amenities and services, you get your critical mass of exposure to your potential customers. You can create businessmen waiting areas. You can create children waiting areas. You can create meditation waiting areas. And at some point, the little chime sounds and a little message comes up. Says, if you're on, Bob's Airline, it's time to go over to gate number 4. When you get to the gate, all that's there is an agent, then maybe a biometric camera and an e-gate. And the agent just lets you on the airplane. So I think that really consolidating your areas into common uses and minimizing the hold room seating, for example, you put all your hold room seating in one spot. Let those folks sit there and be in a central area. Call them to the gate when it's their time to go. That's really, I think, if I were to have greenfield, that'd be something to consider heavily.
Excellent. On to question 3. Do you see mutual benefits between airlines and airports that can influence future airport design? And what will motivate the two parties to get together? Todd, do you want to start with this one?
Well, I thank you. This is a pretty complex topic worthy of a week-long workshop.
Yes, it is.
But I think the part of the answer lies in understanding the backstory on airport and airline strategies and initiatives. If you look at an airline, they're looking at things from a system-wide perspective across sometimes hundreds of airports. And they have a great idea that they come to you and say, hey, we're going to do this in your airport. Now, if you flip that coin over, you're at an airport and you've got this just fantastic idea, but you're trying to sell it in your own airport, but there's 35 airlines that are also in your airport. So you have this, this push and pull. So the strategies at airports and airlines are, I think, inherently slightly detached just because of the way that they're trying to implement in a particular idea. Airlines are very important about brand. They're important, they're aspect of a consistent level of service. But then each airport is its own personality and its own entity and with its own ideas. So as you think about that, mutual benefits are found in common ground and common objectives. But sometimes I would venture to guess, and this is Todd Van Gerpen speaking only, but I think the guest experience gets lost in these discussions because we're so interested in forwarding what we think is a great idea. If you think about the last time you flew, what color was the hold room carpeting at your gate? But now if you look at how long we agonized with our architects over what color that carpet should be, you see the dichotomy come out a little bit. But I think that it's based on relationships, it's based on mutual respect, and it's based on finding that common ground. And then you'll come up with what's in it for both of you.
Excellent. Martha.
I actually see major benefits between the, airlines and the airports working together because, in my mind, I'm like, well, if not for one, we wouldn't have the other. And it's just this constant cycle, that's going around. So I understand that and I appreciate that. And I love to work with our airline partners because, at one point in time, I was one of them. And, just like Todd, we appreciate both sides of the story. And having been on the airline side of the house, I love being on the airport side of the house now, where I feel like I can really make a difference to some of the things that we struggled with on the airline side, that pertain to the airport. So it's really a good place to be, and it's a good feeling. I agree 100% with what Todd said too about the color of the carpet. I always look at the psychological component. I'm like, how is this going to make someone feel? I don't necessarily want them to remember it, but we want the environment to be a peaceful and calming environment because we know how our customers are when they come into the airport. They can be stressed, they can be, going through some really bad situations, and we just want the experience to be just optimal for them. So I know the airlines have the same motivation. They want the return customer, and so do we. And we want it to be the best experience ever. And we want it, at times we want the airport to be as much a part of the destination as the actual destination is. I think the motivation for the two parties working closely together is just that. And let's face it, at the end of the day, it is for financial benefit, and it is to keep us all on the top and keep us afloat. So I think it is it's something that's very important to all of us to have those positive relationships and understand each other and continue to, work together and understand the needs so it can help influence the design and, the overall experience at the end of the day.
Excellent. Let me ask maybe a little off-topic question here. But where do you see these parties in 2035, like we were talking about? In other words, less airlines, more airlines? Is there an overall standards for airports in certain respects, maybe baggage handling or otherwise? Or will it continue to be completely commercialized and, has its benefits and flaws as well there? What do you think, Todd?
Well, I think that the model has to change a little bit. And, I think that if we're going to continue to grow our industry and do it cost effectively, we have to maximize our resource use. We don't have the luxury of letting a passenger loading bridge sit all day long and only use it twice. I think you have to grow within your footprint. SeaTac is terribly land restrained. So all we can do is more with what we have. And that's maximizing the benefits of the resources that you have because you just can't add any more. So I think over time, the models will shift to that maximization. I think the mutual benefit is cost savings to both the airlines and the airports.
Beautiful. Martha.
And I would almost say too, Todd talks a lot about, the continual use and potentially, making common use, et cetera, more available throughout the airport. Just, I guess, for the airlines to have that understanding that, that gate is not their gate. It's going to be used by others to have the maximum use of that particular space when they are not physically there. But my brain jumps back to the actual workers of the air carriers, where there's been a shift over the years to contract workers and contract companies. And I think that they really need to have a good look at who they are contracting and if they need to resort back to their own legacy employees at this point, because I think they, for cost effectiveness, it has been something that's been tried recently in the industry to contract out as much as possible, as many of your frontline workers. But really, are you getting the bang for your buck out of that? Are you losing more customers because the loyalty is not there? Because you don't have the customer or the employees that care as much about your customers, because they may be a little bit more transient and there's a little bit more attrition there. So I'd like to see a little bit more focus on holding on to those legacy employees. But I understand the cost component of that.
Great. Like you said, Todd, I think we could talk about this one for a week, and it really dives into different directions, but I'll move us on to the last question. What do airports need to do to identify other sources of revenue? And how can we create or innovate, I guess, new revenue streams? Maybe in terms of losing parking garage space or otherwise. Martha, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Yes. And so I think that the competition with the transportation network companies are a prime example of this. We are losing our parking revenue to the TNCs. It's so convenient for our customers to hop in an Uber or hop in a Lyft and come to the airport or take a Toro or whatever the case may be. And it's cutting down on our parking revenues. And what is the first thing they teach you? Airport 101, when you need to build something, what do? You build a parking garage, you make the money, and then you go out and you build what you need to build. Well, that's dwindling. So we absolutely need to identify these new revenue sources. So can we look at experiences that potentially come at a cost to our customer? Can we create experiences within the airport in terms of partnerships with concessions? You're seeing gyms pop up in the airport. You're seeing movie theaters pop up in the airports, and just creating a little bit more dwell time in the airport where we're really capturing that revenue. And I think that is something that we need to really focus on, especially as we're creating more space inside the secure area, beyond security, if you will. Excellent. How about you, Todd?
I think in terms of every airport should be a solar farm. We've got these big garages. You might as well put a lid of solar panels on top of it and just make that standard Airport 101, I guess. I think, I agree with you that the offerings need to be something that is of value. I philosophically, though, sometimes have trouble with those that can pay for something get treated differently. And I think that as a public agencies, we need to balance that out as well. There's maybe a revenue stream, but is it equitable and fair? Then
great point.
Yeah, but I think sources of revenue come from service offerings, and just making things of value to our guests.
Excellent. Do you see anything new, I guess, or innovative ways to get new revenue streams, in the future, in 20 years or so?
Well, we can't charge for internet more. That's the sixth utility. Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi is something people talk about, though.
Yeah. It's really a great question that requires, I think, a little more deep thinking than I've been able to give it.
Well, I think you're not alone, Todd, with that. I think that's, the entire industry is looking at this. How are we going to replace some revenue that we're losing? So, excellent to have you both here. The questions, I guess, will be, we already passed those questions. So I'd like to thank Todd and Martha, both of you, for being here. We look forward to what, CTAC and Charlotte innovative technologies are to come. We look forward to what the airports are going to bring us. and really nationwide. I really appreciate your insights. It's been excellent to have you here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy to be here.
I could watch that video a few more times. Listen to a podcast with that on there. It's great.
Yeah, I know I hosted and all, but man, Martha and Todd are really good.
Yeah, we're lucky to have great panelists with such great chemistry. And don't count yourself out there, Kevin. Hey, there's Todd.
I'm good at asking questions. Hey, there's Todd and there's Martha.
Hey, Martha, nice.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
This is like another gift for us. So the fact that Kevin was able to interview both of you, and then now we have you guys here live as well to answer some questions.
Yeah, I think everyone can see the chat questions on the side. I'll just ask Todd and Martha. Rayco Nunley from Dallas. That's an excellent question. He talks about how the airport changed drastically with the introduction of the Airbus A380. Architecture and infrastructure had to change quickly. And we probably see even more drastic changes coming up as everybody talks about vertical takeoff and landing. But he asks, how do you see greenfield and brownfield airport projects evolving to accommodate airplanes that have not been developed yet? Martha, do you want to take a shot at that one?
That is a fascinating, oh my gosh, fascinating question. And gosh, what a great question to ponder.
And give to Todd.
The things that we don't know about yet. It's a fantastic question. I honestly, I don't even know where to start on that one. I think if I had to take a stab at it, I'd say, you're always planning for the unknown. So, what do you need to start looking at now within your airport complex that, bring in your newbies, your brainstorming team of individuals that you really give you those kind of wild, off the cuff ideas, and then just start getting their ideas from them. Todd, what do you think?
Well, what's an A380?
They were popular for a minute.
Yeah, well, but if you look at what happened, the industry developed this aircraft. We responded accordingly, and then the airplane went away almost as fast as it came on. And look how long it took us to respond, and how long it takes us to do anything. So when you get a greenfield or a brownfield, how do you see the projects evolving? Well, slowly, like usual.
Good answer.
But I think there may be we're to the size of aircraft that I think we're going to be able to live with. They may be smaller and faster, but I don't think they're going to get any much larger, because I think the 380 was an example of that. Great airplane, but the longevity of it was really surprisingly short.
Yeah, I remember we had to extend runways for it, add bridges. The only thing I would guess to say is that, like Martha started to say in the beginning, I think, is that we just need to be flexible. Somehow design an infrastructure that can be modified without a lot of cost, right? I don't know how. I don't have that answer, but
is that the unicorn that we're all looking for? No.
Yeah, the unicorn. That's right.
I think one of these other,
Kevin,
I think you guys kind of addressed this in the panel, but maybe there's a little bit more we could touch on with the question here from Jim Davis from Philadelphia, related to the airport relationship and a feasible path to national standards in technology and passenger processing that could create a more predictable, less stressful passenger experience from airport to airport.
Yeah, I think everybody, both Todd and Martha, you both answered that in a way, I believe. Talked about how we're going to there will have to be some sort of standards with biometrics. It'll make, for instance, that's just for one example, but I can't think of any other specifics. I do see a day, and this is maybe with another question that's up there about people being trained, where it is a seamless experience, and it's those national standards that create that seamless experience where there's, you walk through the door,
you do what you want until it's time for you to get on board. I don't know, Todd, Martha, if you have any other insight in that.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because do you homogenize the experience and make it, as much the same as it is everywhere? Or do you try to interject, individualism into your airport to set your airport apart? Air carriers like to set themselves apart and distinguish their service levels. I think we've tried several times to get standards in technology, our common use platforms, our applications, and we made some progress, but I don't think that we've hit the holy grail that we were all looking for. So I think the national standards will be somewhat difficult to achieve, but the benefits are sure obvious to us at this point.
And wouldn't it be ideal from a customer's perspective to just go in and know every time it's going to be the same experience, what to expect, and you're expecting to have that same seamless experience. But then you think about it from a brand perspective from those carriers, and what's going to set them apart. So exactly what Todd said, there does need to be some differences there. So where it would be fantastic to expect the same experience every time, all the time, with the technology and your experience, I think there does need to be some sort of differentiation and competition, candidly.
Yeah, right. It's the American way. There's no doubt. We'll always have that, I believe. Ravi, I don't know if you have you want to do any of these other questions here you see.
I really do like this one. It's a little bit different. We didn't touch on it in the panel discussion, but where I'm at in Los Angeles, LAX plays a key role with the Chamber of Commerce and the community that they're in. How do you look at roles that the airport, both your airports, for example, play in respect back to the communities that they reside in? What's that impact? How important is that, bringing those communities in and together, and what that airport role is?
Not exactly a technology question, but still an excellent question, no doubt.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the airport. The airport where we are, for example, in Charlotte, the airport is one of the largest economic, engines in the region. We're providing jobs, we're providing the financial impact in the area. And if you think about how many people experience the airport in some way, if the airport was not there, we have this responsibility to the community to be there, to have a presence. Now, there's always the environmental impacts, but there's this economic impact that's so important. I look at the people around my community that, if not for the airport, none of us would be here. And I think, well, this is fantastic, and I get all giddy about that. But of course, then you look at the others that are living underneath the flight path. So we do have that responsibility as well, to make sure that we are also developing the area around the airport in the appropriate manner. We're not building neighborhoods underneath the flight path. We're hopefully looking at, industrial parks, golf courses, et cetera, whatever would be most appropriate. But I do think it's very important that we do have that place. So I think that's a fantastic question.
I think just maintaining the engagement and the involvement of your community, and having the open forums and discussion, and also being as supportive you can outward as they are supported inward. I think it's the larger human factor.
Yeah, and I think that the other piece to that too, ties back to another question we had in here in terms of inspiring and getting the youth interested in aviation. That's part of that community, right? Look at the youth around you and encouraging them to get involved in a career in the aviation industry. That's important as well.
Yeah, that was my path to where I am today started with the airlines for 20 years. And I had absolutely no idea what it took to run an airport. And I was busy getting those airplanes in and out and complaining when stuff didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And now being on the other side, I have the perspective like Martha does, that I think the aviation industry has been very good to a lot of us, and I think that it will continue to be so, because it is so unique, and there's nothing else like it. And, if we just have to start recruiting in kindergarten, first grade, maybe.
Excellent. So
Yeah,
just-
I mean, it's always it seems like a playground for great ideas, new ideas that we're seeing the young folks come out of college right now, bringing those new ideas to the airport. It's a great place to test those ideas out, and see where you can take them.
Absolutely. So it's great innovation opportunities. It's always something new to try to solve. That's for sure.
Yeah, Martha and Todd, I could ask you guys questions all day and all night, which it's night here. The moon is up as I look out my window. But I'll end it with this one last question because I think it's excellent. As we continue to incorporate new and needed technologies, how do we ensure that we continue to have real connections with people, which is, I think we've experienced more than ever, very important in the past year and a half.
Martha, I'll let you start.
So I feel like this is totally my department here. I am the people person. I am the extroverted introvert. But I always look for, and I'm going to go back to the hiring process. I always look for the people who are not afraid to have that human connection. And I'll leave it with that. Make sure that you have that strong mix of people who are not afraid to get out there, because you can, from an innovation and technology standpoint, you can always hire the people who know what they're doing. They know what they're creating. They're, head down and get the work done. But you need the people who are going to look up and walk out there and just meet people and have that human connection. So just making sure you have that nice mix is really important.
I've long felt that if you don't find value and satisfaction in making somebody's day just a little bit better, you probably shouldn't be in this business. And it really comes down to that. We're going to have automation, we're going to have biometric readers, we're going to have all those things, but it's still going to take people, and it's still going to take sincerity and compassion and empathy and engagement. And we can't lose sight of that, because the computer will never feel that way.
Martha Edge, Todd Van Gerpen, that was excellent. I very much appreciate it. Ravi, thank you for having us.
Thank you. I mean, I think we could do a part 2 sometime, revisit.
We have to get this out there to everybody to see. This is
we need more of this, the East Coast, West Coast discussions. I love it,
We love it. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been great fun. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I like how you connected my maiden name with Todd's first name. We thought that was very appropriate.
That's why we chose both of you. That was the only reason, Martha.
Oh, okay, or they're the only two that responded to the email.
The honesty. I love the honesty. Well, we're lucky to have you guys, and we're lucky for folks to tune in, and looking forward to revisiting, honestly, with both of you and see how things are going in Charlotte and Seattle. So let's go. Let's move forward to continuing forward with this series, and folks tuning in to our future discussions with Burns Industry Insights. So we're pretty happy to be able to kick off today's event and have a good crowd here tuning in. And of course, things will be made available, recording, for folks to watch this over and over again. I know a few folks here can probably listen to this, as they're watching, like, the Eagles start off their season coming up, and their favorite football teams, of course. And I'd love to thank everybody that helped put this thing together. Kevin, you did a tremendous job. You've got the voice, you got the look. I mean, I think some of the questions came in asking about your hair product. We got to figure it out.
Yeah. That's a secret.
You can't see it on my video, but SheTV Media, who you saw in the beginning pop up, love to thank SheTV for helping us put this one together. They spent a long time kind of getting us coached and prepped and making us look good. They couldn't do anything but the shine, but hey, maybe someday. But thanks a lot for tuning in. We love meeting new people and talking to new folks. And the Burns Engineering crew, definitely thank you for being here.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, folks.